Welcome to the Lean Solutions Podcast. This is the podcast that adds value to leaders by helping you improve performance using process improvement solutions with bottom line results. My name is Patrick Adams, and this season I'll be joined by three other amazing hosts, including Catherine McDonald from Ireland, Andy Olrich from Australia, and Shane Doffenbaugh from the United States. Join us as we bring you guests and experiences of lean practitioners from all over the world. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Lean Solutions Podcast. My name is Patrick Adams and I'm joined by one of our other hosts, Andy Olrich, today. Andy, how's it going down under?
G'day, mate. It's going great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Excited to be back on the show. I've been traveling a little bit over these last few weeks, so I'm looking forward to diving back in here. We have a great topic for today, an amazing guest, which you know personally. So I'm excited for the conversation today. Today, we're going to be talking about transforming companies from within. So I think about, as a consultant, as a coach and a consultant, I run across many other consultants out there, and I work with a lot of companies. And a lot of times what I hear is there's consultants out there that will come into a company, like parachute in, they put a bunch of stuff in place, and then they leave and everything falls apart. And the problem is that particular consultant or coach or trainer, whoever it is not developing that team from within. They're creating something that is a problem for that organization, because now the organization relies on that consultant or that trainer to come back and having to come back to keep things going. And that is not a sustainable lean transformation. So I'm excited to talk about this today, because those coaches and consultants that go into organizations and help develop from the inside, develop an army of problem solvers. That is the type of consultant that you want to have. And so I'm excited to talk with our guest today, Wes Hehn. So Andy, do you want to just introduce Wes, and then we'll dive right into this conversation?
Absolutely love to. Yeah, really fortunate today to be joined by Wes. So Wes is the president of Lean Forward, Continuous Improvement. And he has over 20 years of global experience in leading and implementing lean strategies to drive business growth and achieve operational excellence aspirations. So in addition to Wes's formal education, he holds a Lean Six Sigma certification, as well as multiple Lean certifications, and most notably a Lean Systems Program certification from the University of Kentucky Toyota Cooperative, which reflects his deep knowledge and expertise in the Toyota production system. So as you mentioned, Patrick, yeah, there is a personal connection. I've been fortunate enough to have been trained and mentored by Wes. We met back in 2017, yeah. And
Yep.
it was just one of those moments, and we'll talk a little bit about it, but yeah, how you can have those connections or meet those people that really inspire you to get what Lean's truly about, and really have that passion to go forward and make it part of how you work. But also, yeah, as it's gone to be, I implemented in your personal life as well. So I'm really excited to have you on the show, Wes. And mate, how you going?
Good, good. I'm very honored and excited to be on the show. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. So I'm really looking forward to today's podcast and the discussion within.
Awesome, mate. So yeah, as I said, we met back in 2017, and it was really around an organisation that we were both working in, was around how we're going to create, as Patrick said, that army of problem solvers, give us some training and set us up well, so then we could go on and not only implement and drive that lean improvement, but also then develop our own teams, unique to the areas where we were working, but really have that full understanding and passion for lean that was really infectious when we went into those training sessions. So that's what we'll be talking a lot about today, Wes. And I can say that I've truly felt that. And I know there's a lot of organizations out there that are chasing the same thing, or maybe wanting to know where to get started. So, yeah, the conversation today will go in a few different directions. But I just think, if I was to summarize it, really for me, where it's courageous in some ways to take something like this on. Although it is a slow burn in your experience, but when we're taking that extra time to develop our own people instead of that consistent parachuting in, as Patrick mentioned, what would you say are probably the key benefits of building that capability from within?
Yeah, great question. So before I actually get into the answer to that, guys, I really want to preference my answer by really saying that, I really have a true passion for developing individuals. It's something that I really get a kick out of. Training people through the Lean certification training program, and really kind of imparting what I've learned over the years regarding the implementation of Lean within an organization. So, and I seen this with Andy and others as well. It's, when I see that light bulb going off and when students really grasp, the concepts and the tools that we're trying to get across, it just energizes me. It's just, it's something that I'm fed by. It's just really, really, it's really good. So, really, the outcome of that is now, the students now really understand why previous attempts, have fizzled, by not starting with standardization, and tools to reduce variability, and really put out the fires. They quickly learn that you really have to have three things in place to sustain any change. Leader standard work, visual management, and going to the Gemba. Those are very important. The Gemba, obviously, where the place where the value is added. We use the leap approach. Everybody learns differently, and so the leap approach is really kind of a learn and apply, and it really, it incorporates classroom training, it incorporates shop floor activities, and even a lab simulations throughout the training. You know, each individual is, it's not just one of those training sessions where you go through the training and you get a certificate at the end that you can put on your credenza. Basically, there's requirements to come out of the Lean certification training. So each participant is required to complete 5 Lean events. And, those events are actually, guided and mentored by myself or any other individual who has already gone through the training. And it follows a Lean roadmap, that again begins with that standardize and stabilize, and then it works through improving flow or creating flow. So now that I've kind of got to that, back to your question, Andy, the question of building the capability within your organization through training, within that organization, and it really includes, the benefits really include creating lean warriors. Patrick, I think you used that term, or a lean army, within an organization, right? So you don't have those consultants or those individuals kind of fly in, run the events, and fly out. But the individuals that are actually trained, now can support lean events or Kaizen events, Kaizen being, improve for the better, within the company. And so, those events can come from strategy deployment, which I like to refer to as improving the business, or from KPIs within an area. They could either be operational or financial, and that's what I really call running the business. So now we've got individuals who are trained to be able to support that. And when more individuals have the knowledge and the abilities, it really supports a more rapid change process, right? So, and not just with, it being more rapid, you can be assured that the change is going to take place. And most importantly, when you include those individuals, and they're within all levels of the organization, one thing that you can be sure of is that, involving them, the change process will be sustained. I think that's extremely important. There's many scholarly articles out there that suggest that, developing colleagues and involving them in the change process also leads to increased retention as well.
Right.
So that's, some of the benefits. So, and, in terms of, I guess that really kind of summarizes it for me.
Yeah. If you don't mind, let me jump in, Andy. I just want to hit on a couple things that you mentioned. I'm trying to think of who the quote was from, but it's something to the effect of teach me, and I'll learn, or show me and I'll understand, and then involve me, and I'll be invested, or it's something to that effect. I'm sure someone out there will correct me, but I think that there's so much power in what you said, Wes, around involving people. So many times, companies they just want to, give me the 10 steps, or, tell my team what to do, and give us the answers. Well, that doesn't work in long-term sustainment. If you're not involving people to where they have the buy-in, they're invested in the outcome. I mean, that's such an important concept. And so I wanted to just hit on that briefly, but then also what you said about people and just respect for people brought up a question in my mind. As you're going into these organizations and you're working with them in developing internal strengths of the team, skills, knowledge, abilities, do you ever come across people that are stubborn, or maybe they've been around for a while and they don't want to change, they want to hold on to their old ways, or whatever it might be? What kind of advice would you give to our listeners on how to get people like that on board? Because from a respect standpoint, you're not looking to just get rid of people. Like you're going to have a mix of people. Some people are going to be those early adopters that jump right on, and they're invested, they're ready, they're excited. You're going to have other people that are going to need a little bit more coercing, and it's going to take them a little bit longer. And we want everyone to be involved and included. So what would be your advice on how to get them on board?
Great question. So I don't know if you're familiar with John Cotter.
Oh yeah.
John Cotter. Okay, so John Cotter is a leader in change management, right? And so, he has this thought process of, you have 10 people who are involved in the change process. You're going to have 2 people out of that 10 who are going to be fully supportive of changing, right? You're going to have 6 that are going to be on the fence. And then you're going to have, as you mentioned, those 2 that are just, they're not on board with change. They don't want to change. They like things the way they are. So the question is, who do you focus on? Who do you focus on out of those 10 people? I mean, you don't have to focus on the 2, right? Because they're already on board. So do you focus on the 6 who are on the fence, or do you focus on the 2 who are not supportive of change? What do you guys think?
So
I'll go with the 6.
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, I'll go with the 6 to get that, that critical mass moving, and you telling them to get on board, or the passionate too. I don't think would have as much impact as that 6 of their own kind of all moving in. But hopefully I haven't just embarrassed myself and got it wrong. But Patrick, what do you think, mate?
Well,
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm thinking of Malcolm Gladwell's book, The Tipping Point, and kind of these different groups of people, and how what are your strategies in order to get them to the tipping point to actually get involved. And in my experience, I would say I'd almost want to focus on. I'd want to know what kind of influence that these people have in whatever the area of business that they're working in, because I've had stubborn individuals that were in Kaizen events with me, and they had a very high level of influence with the group and with their department. And so I knew that if I could win them over, and bring them over to, to my side of the fence, that would have a larger impact than, worrying about someone that's in the room who is listening and engaged. But the one that, the influencer was usually in the back with his arms crossed and, not wanting to talk or whatever it was. And so I always make it a point to, figure that person out and figure out how to get them on board. So I don't know.
Yeah.
My answer, I guess, would be, I'd first look for that person and see who's more influential. But I think, the people that are on the fence, if you can get them, again, I go back to the tipping point, the more people that we can get invested and bought in, then the rest will either come or they'll self-select themselves out. So I don't know if that, give us the answer, Wes.
Okay, yeah. So you both make great points. Cotter subscribes to you would focus on the 6 individuals who are on the fence, right? So you get them over the fence. But that's not to mean that you don't spend effort in trying to get those 2 that are against change
Sure.
come over, right? So it's not like you just say, okay, you know what, you're not into this. It's one of those opportunities for coaching, where you pull them aside and say, look, I can tell that you're not excited about this change, but you're very important. That's why you're in this, in this team, and we really do value your opinion and your expertise. So please, let's talk about, your aversion to change. And so you do spend some time and some effort to be able to get those individuals on the side of the fence of change. However, if that doesn't work, then you're just not going to spend any more time, and it's obvious that they're not going to be part of that change process. So the answer is you focus on the 6. At least you'll have 8 folks that you'll have in support of change, and the 2 that aren't. But you're both right. And Patrick, you really want to have those discussions. You really want to still understand, what's their aversion to change, what's their influence with the rest of the team, and really try to bring them over. But at some point, you kind of have to cut your losses. And so I guess that would be my answer for that, Patrick.
Yeah, no, great answer for sure. I think, to your point, if you can get those 6, again, for anyone that hasn't read The Tipping Point, I mean, that's the whole basis, is how do we get the majority to the point where they're adopting, accepting, signing up to the buy-in is there. Because then what happens is the other people that are still kind of hanging out, once they see the majority has adopted and accepted the change, then they're more apt to come along as well.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Anyways.
And really, if you think about it, guys, I can even think for myself, change is difficult. Not everybody is, gosh, I hope I can go to work today and experience some type of change. Change is difficult for everybody. But we have to really talk about, the vision and the benefits of the change and where we're going, as a result of the change.
Sure.
And really get that buy-in. And I think that's, extremely critical to those people, because we're all humans, right? And we're all going to have some aversion to change. And so we have to work with that. We have to understand that, and be sympathetic to it.
That's so great. And yeah, we're really talking about the uplift in culture, right? So getting that culture right where people, like you said, they buy in, they're on board, they understand that the change is difficult, but hey, you know what? I believe that this is probably going to go somewhere that will help, and I'm in. And as you said, there's always going to be a couple that it just gets hard, and but again, as Patrick touched on, there's probably some really good reasons why they feel that way, and we need to explore that. And so when we're talking about uplifting that culture, Wes, you've done a lot of this in your career.
Mm-hmm.
When you're looking to, depending on whether you walk into a place that has a really toxic culture, or hey, they know that this is their way out of the mess, and they're welcoming you in with open arms. What do you think? And can you talk us through some of your approaches around and the structures that you would use when looking to, let's say, if we're really looking to uplift that culture? You talked about the deployment roadmap. So, really taking them on that journey from not start to finish as such, but yeah, guys, we've got to start here. So there's that full deployment roadmap approach, but then also those ad hoc events where you might come in and run a Kaizen event, or maybe both. Can you talk us through some of those scenarios and some pros and cons?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have created a roadmap. And again, it starts out with standardizing and stabilizing an organization. It includes operator standard work, leader standard work, It gets into job instruction training. It gets into visual management. It gets into 5S. It gets into metrics or I'm sorry, daily Kaizen. It gets into metrics and a tiered Gemba walk, and then it gets into problem solving, right? And then from there, we go into creating flow, and we really start looking at error proofing. We look at value stream mapping, process mapping, Kaizen events that actually are a result of what comes out of the VSMs and the value stream maps. We look at continuous flow. We look at cell design. We look at Kanban. We look at all those things, right? So if you think about it, the beginning of the roadmap is really to remove, to standardize, and really to remove variability. Variability is really the enemy. And we also, at that point, set targets, and we start measuring those targets, and we start, understanding how we're performing against those targets. Excuse me. And then when we start to fall short of that, we get into some problem solving. Then the piece of improving flow, that's really, now we've gotten rid of a lot of the variability. Now let's really start focusing on where are our bottlenecks. How can we start? Where's the duplication? How can we really start moving, removing waste from the process and really moving through those steps that I mentioned to improve flow. And really, to answer your question, Andrew, so there are a couple different ways that you can approach that roadmap, right? I've gone into organizations before where the whole goal was to implement lean and do it from start to finish. And for that, we've picked pilot areas. And we've started from the beginning of the roadmap, and we've implemented each one of those exits, if you will, on the roadmap to make an area just go from zero to hero, if you will. And what that does is you've got other teams, you've got other areas, and they're looking over at that. They're saying, "Wow, that's pretty cool. I want to be part of that." I want to be in that type of an environment, because ultimately what you'll see is firefighting will go down. You'll start to see, it's more rhythmic. It's almost like a dance. It just becomes extremely efficient. But let's face it, we also have businesses to run, right? And so we encounter problems, and we might need to interject, further into the roadmap, right? At, let's say, a value stream mapping event, which I've done several times, right? From that value stream map, we might then run a Kaizen event to improve, the cell design within an area. While we're doing that, we'll pick some pieces of the standardize and stabilize portion of the roadmap. Because, as a business, we're trying to get those results immediately. And so I guess to answer your question, I've seen a couple different approaches of how we can do that. And it all depends on the customer's needs, right? On the client's needs. Do they want to just start this cultural transformation and start off and dig into one area? Or do they really have some problems that they need to jump right into some problem solving or some value stream mapping and Kaizen events, and then where it might take us from there? So I hope that answers your question, Andy.
Hello, everyone. I am sorry to interrupt this episode of the Lean Solutions podcast, but I wanted to take a moment to invite you to pick up a copy of my Shingo award-winning book, Avoiding the Continuous Appearance Trap. In the book, I contrast the cultures of two companies I worked for. And though each started with similar lean models, one was mechanistic and only gave the appearance of lean, while the other developed a true culture of continuous improvement. The contrast provides a vivid example of the difference between fake lean and true lean. You can find the book on Amazon. Simply search my name or the title of the book. You aren't a reader? No worries. The audiobook is also available on Audible. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, it's a good point. And like you said, what the customer requires, because let's face it, the lean certification program I did with you, that was a serious investment in getting people off site for a week, for a week at a time over two 1 week blocks, right? So yeah, a lot of companies may not have the capacity or the people to pull them out of the day to day for that, and might use the immediate improvements as the vehicle to then get people interested and drive. So I feel quite fortunate that I was able to kind of do both, right? So, and as yeah, I certainly align with that. So yeah, it's not a one size fits all, or if we don't do the full roadmap, we're wasting our time either, because that impact and that buy-in can lead to, from that standalone event, in my experience, can lead to, you know what, I think there's a group here that's, we might just take one or two out of that area and run them through that full roadmap, because we see now, if we've got that, again, that culture and capability within, we can do a
Absolutely.
lot more of that. So yeah, thank you. Great answer, Wes. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, and one thing too, I'd have to add to that is, let's say we do just go in and we run a Kaizen event. There's always training, right? We always train because anybody that's involved in that, again, I want them to understand what it is that we're going to be doing. What are the benefits of it? What can they expect? So it's not like we're not imparting the knowledge when we go in and just run Kaizen events. It's coupled with still training and still developing people, and even any of the ancillary events that come from that original Kaizen event, we train on that as well. So there's a couple different approaches that depending again upon the business need, that we can take in really implementing lean.
Yeah, meet your customer where they are, right? I mean, I
Right.
love that you didn't say, this is the approach we take every time. Whether they need it or not, we're gonna make them do these 5 things and implement these 10 tools that worked at this other company. No, that doesn't work, right? So you have to know your customer, meet them where they are. I also love the model area approach too. I'm glad that you brought that up. When you're working on, I mean, change, like you said, change is difficult, and a lot of times, it's a big animal or a big ship you're trying to turn, or however you want to look at it. And if you can break it down into smaller chunks and work in one small area and prove things out and then replicate that across the organization, sometimes that can be a lot, a lot easier for the organization to accept and actually go down that road. And you talked about Gemba walks, you talked about standardization, right? We need to stabilize first before we can improve. And I heard you mentioned leader standard work. And I was
Mhm.
thinking about a client that we worked with where the organization, or the leadership at the organization, felt like, they didn't need leader standard work. We're going to delegate the Gemba walks. We're going to delegate the standard work audits. We're going to, that's something that someone else should be doing in the organization, not us. And so that was a failure mode for that particular client, because we were like, no, we really need your buy-in, your involvement, at every level of the organization. Now, of course, higher executives are going to have less of their time standardized, but we still need you to be involved and engaged. So that leads me to my question for you, Wes. In your experience, what are the biggest failure modes that you've had in, trying to lead lean deployments across organizations? I mentioned the leader standard work and executive involvement being maybe one of those. Maybe you've experienced the same, or maybe you have some other failure modes, or other ideas around that.
Sure. So I do. I think sometimes, you talked about leaders not wanting to be involved in some of the activities or some of the standard work. I've also seen, leaders that are very proud, right?
Mhm.
And it's difficult for them to accept support. They want to be able to handle it on their own. And so I've seen that happen. Other pitfalls, um, I guess, Patrick, if you could repeat that, other pitfalls to
When you're
implement.
Yeah, when you're going into an organization and you're deploying lean, however that may be, whether you're developing an overarching business system or you're working on in one area of the business as a model area of the business, what are the
Yep.
types of pitfalls that you come into during deployment that might kind of hold that organization back or hold you back as a coach, a trainer? What are some of the things you've experienced?
Yeah. So, okay, great question. So I still would say the leaders, having that pride and really not wanting to accept support.
Yeah.
But another big pitfall that happens is um, firefighting,
Mm,
right? So people are in this mode of firefighting. That's how they've been working for years. So it's, I don't have time to learn these tools and to use a more structured approach to get to root cause. As a matter of fact, many organizations reward firefighting.
mm,
And, so when you think about it, um, that really can derail, the implementation of lean. If we're, continually firefighting and we're in that mode, we're rewarding that. It's not allowing us to stop and to really, use an approach that's going to be much more successful, much more sustainable. Um, I guess that you call it whack-a-mole, right?
mm.
So a problem comes up and they hit it through firefighting and it goes away. One thing we know is that problem will come back,
Right.
right? And they'll hit the next mole and they'll hit the next mole and they'll hit the next mole. So I see that probably as one of the biggest interferences that I've come across is, getting away from this thought process of firefighting
Mm,
and really getting to root cause. And even sometimes even in getting to root cause, um, I've seen individuals say, you know what, we've tried that before, and it didn't work. Well, there were a lot of things that might have been different at that point in time as well. And so, um, you can't always go by that as well. So,
mm.
um, yeah, I think those are a couple examples that I've seen when I go to organizations,
Yeah.
people just, firefighting and,
Mm.
and, and really getting stuck in that mode of firefighting.
Wes, what's your go-to strategy for reducing or eliminating firefighting within an organization?
It's really bringing awareness to what they're doing,
Mm,
and really talking about the approach that they're taking, um, guys, look, you're going to solve this problem today, and bless your hearts for doing that. You're doing the best you can to get product out the door, but this problem will return, and you'll have this again. Let's take the time. Let's stop. Let's get to root cause. Let's really understand it. Whether it's going through a 5 why or if it's a more difficult problem, spending the time to do an 8 step and have you part of that, and really getting to root cause and making this problem go away forever, and it's really appealing to them on that level. Do you want to continue to battle this, now in 3 months and 6 months, or would you much rather this problem go away forever? And really start to appeal to that, to that person and that train of logic.
hmm
That there, Wes, like I'm having really uh, good flashbacks of when we first met and did the training. There was
Mhm.
some really key sayings and things that I guess when the light bulb turned on for me, that was those things that you were saying throughout the training that was really, stop the line so the line doesn't stop. Or
Yeah.
no standard, no Kaizen, or you even had that example of and just made it clear that, hey, see that you're kicking your own backside. And
Yeah.
that was just like, yeah, I'm doing that. What? And that was for me, like it probably, yeah, and it's inspiring stuff. But just having that moment where someone can go, hang on, do you realize what you're doing? You have this, do you connect with this? And that really drives that why home. And again, that's a lot of the things that I aspire to now when I'm coaching or training others. Wes is some of those examples there is around, yeah, just putting it
Yeah.
in front of them, but maybe in a different way with a little bit more structure, a little bit more visibility. It just changes everything. And one of the other things I wanted to touch on too, and certainly saw in you, Wes, and I try and model that as well, and in Patrick as well, is how it's the little extra things that you bring when you're training and coaching, like that extra 5 minutes after the class to maybe go back over something, or just that follow-up phone call when it's not officially part of either the role, whether you're in there leading the training or delivering the training, etc., or the event. I found that really helpful. So Patrick, Wes is the kind of guy that when he does the training, it's like, okay, 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, we're going to the gym. And people are like, what? Yeah, there was all these little things where it was made very clear that this is it's not just about improving the business results. This is about improving yourself, and those deep personal connections. You thread those through, and as I said, that was something that everybody in that situation said, this is different, right? And that was one of the things that I found for that cultural perspective. It wasn't just from the 9 to the 5 and punch the clock and you just kind of turn all that off, right?
Yeah.
That's where I've found that for that cultural transformation, it's the little things that matter and getting that personal connection, which, Wes, I can go on and on a bit, right? But I just truly feel that it's those real points of difference and those people that show that they care, and whether that's someone coming in to get that going, or you've got people in the organization that are there and they've got your back. I find for that, those failure modes around maybe they don't see the value in spending the time, or they think it's a cost-cutting exercise only, and those things. So I find that that's a real skill, but also you can tell when someone really believes in this stuff and it's contagious, and that's that cultural piece. I just really wanted to thread that in here because I find that, yeah, how did I end up going? I was a maintenance supervisor at the time, right? Looking after a maintenance team. I was just like, that is the way. And I actually, yeah, I like you said you get that energy from seeing people turn the light on, or they do an event, and it's never perfect, but it's like, wow, that's great. I feel good that I know that I'm helping them. So that's really, yeah, I can't hammer that home enough. It's just those little things, and having someone that cares, and that it's really about helping you at the end of the day. That's, yeah, I appreciate you letting me have that moment to articulate that, because that's where after that it's just up and away, and it's really inspiring. So
Yeah. And,
thank you,
Andy,
Wes.
that's a good point. That relationship between the student and the teacher, right? And having that bond. But I'd also like to bring up the fact that now you have peers that you're working with, and you now have other people to bounce ideas off of, and to call up and say, "What do you think about this?" And I know that you've used that as well, and because you've brought it up to me, you're like, "Gosh, now I have people that I can reach out in, a different part of a different state within Australia, and talk to them, and so it really builds community, and kind of to tie back into Patrick's question about firefighting, I think that we kind of challenge each other at that point to say, hey, mate, are you firefighting, or are you really getting to root cause?
Hmm.
So yeah, I think, it's having those discussions about, firefighting, and the fact that you're just going to continue to deal with this problem time and time again. It's about the relationship that you have, student to instructor, and it's also the relationship that you have with each other as peers within the class that help, drive home a lot of what we're training, and really, getting away from that firefighting.
Mm, I love it. I could hear when Andy was talking. I mean, you can hear the appreciation in his voice around how he was developed and taught. It made me think too, Wes, about you as a trainer. When you're going into these organizations, I know that you want to build up other trainers in the organization. That's part of
Right.
your model. How do you teach them that? The things that Andy was talking about. I mean, obviously, that's got to be rewarding as a trainer to hear that from someone that was in your class. but how do you teach that to other trainers within organizations that are going to be doing that when you leave? How do you get them to understand that piece of change management in an organization?
Yeah, so a lot of it, Patrick, comes just from innate. It's innate in Andy.
Mm,
It's just innate. He has that passion. He has that excitement when he is supportive and is helping people.
sure.
I see that as well with other individuals, and that's why they do end up stepping up and saying, I do really see the value in this, and I'm very excited about what we're doing. And I've lived for so many years, firefighting and not having these tools in place, and I can totally see where we've gone off the tracks.
Mm,
Um, you know, and believe it or not, and you might have experienced this too, Patrick, where there's been other lean implementations that failed,
yeah.
right? So explaining that, this is why this will not fail, right? If you follow these steps, you can be sure, just like I mentioned with sustainment of change, leader standard work, visual management, going to the Gemba, you put those in place, those changes are going to stick.
Mm,
And I think that what happens is, the individuals that are in the training, they're like, man, I get it. I totally get that now from my past experiences, from what you're training right now. And that passion and that excitement is just innate in them, and from the experiences that they've had in the past. And so, for me, it's really not that difficult to instill the passion within the individuals. More for me, it's okay. Let's work on your presentation skills and what are we trying to get across, and what's the best approach? How many examples can pull in to help the students understand this? You know, per the topic that we're trying to get across.
mm,
Uh, and so I really, I truly feel that, again, I guess to reiterate, the passion, is innate. It also comes from past experiences with failed lean, and now they can see that, through this methodology that it's going to be successful.
mm,
And then just me being able to coach them on, the best methods of preparing and presenting the data or the training to the class um, to make it real for them.
right. Absolutely. Love it. Um, so we're kind of coming into the end of our time today. Wes, I feel like we need to continue on because this is such a good conversation. We almost need to do a part one and part two.
I'm all for it.
Yeah, I got so many more questions. But Andy, do you have any last questions before we wrap up for the day?
Not really, just just some reflections again, just on what we've been talking about. And I always sometimes find it a challenge for people to feel about this stuff the way that I do, and what's the best way that I can get them to get it. But it's so hard when everybody's different. But I just want people to think about when they're listening to this, if you really enjoy helping people and you get a kick out of watching teams succeed, and don't underestimate how much difference you can make by, again, I said those little things. Like, for example, Wes, I was fortunate enough to go through your training program when I was in a really tough time in my career, and it absolutely set me on a path. And well, here I am now,
Mm,
in Australia,
You've grown so much.
talking to you. But
Yeah.
also, this doesn't happen without obviously people like Patrick that again see something and are passionate about helping others and just building this community around what we do, because it's never always easy. But I just think to people, if this is something that you want and you want to be that type of leader, like, keep going. And it's just so great. Like I said, we need to do a part two, but I just say thank you to you guys, because it's now I'm trying to pay that forward, right? I'm trying to work with others and not scare them off with my sometimes over accelerated passion and enthusiasm. But yeah, I just reflect on this conversation, and I'd like others to as well. It's just like, what am I doing? How am I being seen by others? If I really want them to get it and understand and be on board,
Mhm.
Do I jump straight in with the tools? Do I say, go straight in with a cost thing in mind, or is it, hey, who are you, and what makes you feel good and do you like helping others? So
Mm.
Yeah.
yeah, I just think that's really why I do this stuff. And Katie Anderson had a great um, phrase when she came down here, and it was profit is excrement. And it was all about, when you're developing people and you're doing the work, you'll get all of these amazing things happen within the team, the people, the culture, and you'll make a profit, right? That's kind of seen as
Yeah.
like the secondary type thing. And that's, yeah, connects well. So again, thank you. I've tried not to, I'm trying not to make this about me, but I just want, if people can hear the passion and gratitude in my voice, stick with this stuff, guys, because the magic happens. All right. So Wes, I'm just so thrilled that you've come on, and thanks again, Patrick, for making all this happen.
Hey, before we conclude, is there one thing that I could also pass along as advice when we're trying to implement lean in an organization that I feel is really important?
Please.
Patrick, you asked about pitfalls
Mm.
associated with, firefighting and getting people out of that firefighting mode. Just one other point I want to make, and it's something that I had to learn the hard way. Um, I actually had a lean certification training program in Asia Pacific. It was actually in Southeast Asia. And the participant selection was mid-level leaders to frontline workers. And what I learned quite quickly was that you can train those individuals, the tools, and you can explain to them the purpose of them and the importance of them and how to follow them. But if you do not include the leaders first, it's all for naught, right? We learned quite quickly, these individuals that were in the Asia Pacific, the Southeast Asia Pacific, or the Southeast Asia training course, they came out of the program, they were energized, they had all the knowledge, the abilities to start the lean implementation, but the leaders didn't. And so they were kind of stifled. They were kind of shut down on being able to really put those skills to use. So something very important that I really want to make sure that I get across is we need to start with the leaders. They
Mm.
have to understand the benefits. They have to understand the path that we're going to take, and they have to understand how important their support is in the process. So I just wanted to make sure and get that in before we concluded, because it's extremely important when you're trying to implement lean into an organization.
Absolutely. I'm glad that you brought that up, Wes, and it's a great way to close. And just knowing that that's such an important and key piece in lean transformations that the three of us have experienced. I'm sure we can all attest to that, and many
Mhm.
listeners can as well. Wes, if anybody does want to reach out to you, if they're interested to connect, learn more about the training that you offer, or anything else that's offered through your organization, what would be the best way for them to reach out to you?
Absolutely. Appreciate that, Patrick. So my website is theleanforward.com. So, there's an opportunity to ask questions and that type of thing. That will come directly to my email box. The other method is you can email me directly, and my email address is Wes, W-E-S, at theleanforward.com. And I would welcome anybody's questions, anybody's comments. So please, either one of those avenues, please do reach out to me if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that we drop both of those into the show notes. So if you're listening in and you would like to connect with Wes, just go to the show notes and you'll find those links, and you'll be able to connect with him directly. I love our lean community. It's funny how Wes closes with, just shoot me an email, let me know if you have a question, I'll answer it. I just love our lean community, and just the willingness to share, and that's that's how the continuous improvement mindset works, right? All of us want to just help each other and continue to improve. So we appreciate that, Wes, and appreciate you coming on the show today, and look forward to part two. We're definitely going to have to do the part two because I got a whole list of questions here that I still want to ask.
Sounds good. And as far as that lean community go, Patrick, you emulate that probably the best. So thank you for what you're doing with the
I
community.
appreciate that. Thank you. Well, have a great day. I think you're actually in Africa, correct, right now? So
Yeah, that's right.
nighttime. So have a good night.
Okay, will do.
All right. Take care, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Lean Solutions Podcast. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe. This way you'll get updates as new episodes become available. If you feel so inclined, please give us a review. Thank you so much.